All right, today I have Gil Carmo, the founder of iMotorbike. For those of you who don't know, iMotorbike is the leading online platform to buy or sell pre-owned motorcycles, and they have operations in Vietnam and Malaysia. Thank you very much for being here, Gil.
Thank you for having me.
So I always have to start these conversations because I'm obsessed with the origin story. How did you decide to become an entrepreneur, and what led you down the path to iMotorbike?
Great question. Thank you. I think the decision of becoming an entrepreneur came very early in my life. I think I was probably 11, 12 years old. And for me, it was just really incredible to see the power of creation. I probably didn't know the word entrepreneur by then. But I just really liked the fact that out of nothing, out of nowhere, you can start by your own ideation, create something that adds value, and you monetize it. And that just stuck with me for the longest time. I think iMotorbike came post a lot of experimental, a lot of things that I've tried to do and learn from throughout my journey. And at the moment that I understood kind of that there's no right time, right? It took me a while to get that lesson. And then it come with the fact that was the understanding of arriving to Asia, seeing the humongous market of motorcycles that existed, especially because I landed first in Asia, in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City. And just by, landing in Ho Chi Minh, I was absolutely shocked with the amount of bikes circulating on the streets. And going down to the path of trying to get a bike myself and learning that there was no digitalization whatsoever in motorcycles, and then learning the rest of Southeast Asia was similar to it. I started to scratch my head. I started going around it, and obviously being a petrol head and super passionate about the digital world, I thought it would be just brilliant if I could merge both passions. It took me a while to do that step. Like I mentioned, it took me a while to understand there's no right time. And that was it, basically.
Yeah, I think if you waited around for the right time, you'll continue just waiting and waiting, because it never actually feels like the exact right moment. So you can get stuck in that analysis paralysis, yeah?
True. It's pretty much the same as having kids, right?
It is. And the company is kind of like your baby. You want to see it grow up and be strong, yeah?
Indeed.
Cool. So you land in Ho Chi Minh City. You're inundated with all the motorbikes around there. And so how did you take your first steps? What did the first steps towards launching look like?
It started really when I started seeing the volume of bikes, and I did the research of how many bikes were registered throughout Southeast Asia, and what was the trend, how was it growing. I took my time. I really researched it quite a bit, and then I recall I had a very close friend of mine was heading a very large pharma finance multi-country in Asia. And I went to meet him because I was definitely not a finance person. I said, like, how do I build this? Like, how do I look at numbers in a way that this makes sense? And he actually sat with me. We went through all modeling possible. Something that I had done in the university, but now I wanted to apply to the real world. And that was fun. So the exercise obviously was always pulling out numbers that were extremely bright, overly bright, but ended up taking the path of building a classified platform, internet kind of 1.0. Nothing existed, so I thought the best path to enter a digitalization of motorcycles would be to make the first steps of internet to it, and that's basically how it all started, I would say.
Okay. And so are you a technical founder yourself, or were you able to kind of set up the web page, do the initial programming, or did you have to bring people on board for that?
Okay, so I'm definitely not a developer, neither did I study. for that. I did some scripts and built for MIRC back in the days, and I had a lot of fun building websites in Dreamweaver and the like. And my father actually was an IT teacher back in the day, so that brought me very close to that world, but I don't code myself, but I did the initial website, which was a blog, and I built it in weeks, and then ended up moving into WordPress, building all of that at scratch. But then the full platform, obviously, I had the help of a real developer.
Okay. So tell me about this initial blog. So that's what you initially came out to market with. And the blog was what sort of content? It was like a listings page. You were talking about like motorbike enthusiasts, or what was that?
So the funny part is I was neither a developer or a writer, and I started writing articles. so I started writing several articles daily about motorcycles, which was great, putting me to research so much about older motorcycles, and you know, getting all set up. Actually, in the day, in the first day, I decided, and I was sitting in a coffee, and I, you know, draw in PowerPoint the logo that is still live today, and all those things, right? It was great because I got to start interviewing people, and one person that I interviewed in that same day is still today with us, which is actually Michelle, the writer of our news portal, one of the writers. And she basically joined me in a promise that one day I'll pay her a salary. And that
someday this is going to take off and you'll be paid.
That was fun because it took about 4 or 5 months for me to start feeling quite bad, and I started paying her salary from my own pocket. Not that I had funding, but I had to because she was just great helping it. And you know, the news were out there, and all of a sudden Facebook, I recall, we had this massive amount of traction, followership. You know, we got a post with 10,000 likes at a certain stage, and it was bunches because it was very minimal. We had our logo, we had kind of a mascot bike at that time that we had a custom built on the Cup, the biggest, most sold bike in the world. So I thought was a good mascot. We dropped it at a certain point. And then we had this blog where we post news daily about bikes, and that was it.
Okay. And the audience primarily where you were at in Ho Chi Minh, or where? Oh,
so we started the company in Malaysia.
Okay. So you're in Malaysia at this point.
Yeah, already
you decided to launch. Okay.
Yeah.
So then I guess is the audience primarily Malaysia?
Was primarily Malaysia, and then we obviously had drag followership from Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia.
Sure.
So on.
Yeah, I mean, once you're online, you can start grabbing audiences from different places, especially when you start leveraging social media, etc. And so when was the transition? Because in the early days you were heavily focused on the classified side, but so when you're talking about building out kind of news content and writing articles and that kind of stuff, at what point do you transition to becoming like a listings page?
Yeah, so that was the initial idea since beginning, right? But we had to start with the ransomware, putting our name somewhere out there, and you know, selling the vision to investors, and the listing came at the same time. But I needed someone to help me to code, exactly because I couldn't drop you know, a line that would add to the second line, and then so it was at the simultaneous time that I was trying to get someone to join us to start the coding of that listing platform, which happened a month later. And then that person joined, and then we had another person that joined us, and we started putting it all together. And we got to have a listing platform, I think about 4 months in, 3-4 months in. And we started having then the onboarding of all dealers to the platform, and then consumers and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was quite an interesting period as well.
Okay, so you start ramping up. I am curious though, like when you want to set off and start getting listings, there's an awareness aspect of trying to get people to know that they should be listing on your website. And then you have like the chicken and egg. Why am I going to list if there's not viewers? So you need to kind of build some of those two sides of it.
Yeah.
I guess on the supply side, how did you actually go out and tell people, hey, like you've got a used motorbike. Let's put it up on iMotorbike and get it sold.
Yeah, look, it's a phenomenal effort. The supply demand of a classified page is it's an incredible exercise, and obviously supply is king, right?
Mm,
The will follow. It's always kind of the rule of thumb. So what we thought is, let's go wholesale, because wholesale is where the volume is, right? And then once the volume is, triples down on SEO because keyword spread.
sure.
If our architecture is properly built, it will just, stick out, and then demand naturally will be there, which panned out to be true. So we got to a point we were absorbing hundreds of dealers monthly
Hmm.
to our platform, and then just fully supporting them on getting all their products live, obviously, because we were second nature interest for them at that point in time in terms of
Yeah.
business channeling, like you just said.
Hmm.
And until the point that we start to become relevant, and they would start visiting us to the day-to-day basis because they would be getting all the leads and whatnot. And then the SEO was definitely working really well. At some point, we were a case study of SEO. We had a very bright guy that worked with me in Lazada before, helping us with all the infrastructure and build up of the SEO. And that was exciting. Yeah, it grew quite a lot of customer and dealer love, to be honest.
Okay. Okay. And the was the revenue model kind of like a listing fee, or how did you end up working that out in those early days when you're dealing with the wholesalers?
So that's when it becomes really delicate, the classifieds. There's two ways to be successful with classifieds. One is the very long, organic, years and years and years in, up to the point that you'll get there. This was true before Facebook became a marketplace.
Mm,
Um, and the other one is investing millions of dollars in marketing, take the country as a whole in a day, and then guarantee that you stay there, right?
yeah.
And doing the right thing. So we, Facebook obviously evolved very aggressively as a free listing platform for everyone,
Mm,
with the largest user base globally, right, in any market as well. Making it extremely hard for this classified model to be a success story to anyone. And we've seen over and over all these millions of classified companies getting to, foot down and understand there's no point. We need to flip to transactional. And actually, that's what we did, right?
okay.
We hit the head really hard on making sure we tried every single thing that we could to make it work. But inevitably, we learned the lesson and we moved to something that is actually feasible and workable. Because, when you cannot compete with all the companies that are doing it for free and providing a lot of leads, why would anyone pay you, right? So we were getting a lot of money from media sales,
Hmm.
but we didn't want a media company, right? We wanted the
Right.
scalable portal that is transactional somehow. So in July 21 is when we made it the pivot to shutting down completely anything to do with classifieds, thank God.
Okay.
And guarantee that we open up to a whole new business, which is supporting the buyers and sellers of motorbike. And doing the trade of the pre-owned motorcycles, right? So by basically getting people that are selling their motorcycles to get their bikes to us, to our inspection centers, getting the bikes fully inspected, 170 points done in each bike with a report, and then getting their money wired directly to them post the bike is sold. This process takes about 20 to 30 minutes at maximum. And then we do kind of a mini in-house refurbishment to the motorcycles where we take care of the safety features, right? the tires, the brakes, the oils, and whatnot. And then we upload the bikes, we put them live, and offer the buyers out there to purchase the bike from us, right? Where we offer insurance, where we offer access to financing. We do the road tax, all the paperwork for them, and we can even ship the bikes to their house, providing a 6 days return policy and a 6 months warranty on every bike we sell.
Okay, so made a big switch in the business model. I am curious because I know there's a lot of founders out there that kind of run into that wall where it's really hard to make that decision to pivot. So I am curious with that, when you were going through it and you started seeing that the classifieds model where it's the listings and the media and that sort of angle, did you stick your toe in the water, test out the transactional side? Was it a rip the band-aid and let's tomorrow we're a new company? What was kind of that transitional period like? And what's some of the logic that when you're talking to your stakeholders, your team, all of that, what are some of the conversations on, are we doing the right thing?
Look, what I can tell you was extremely natural. Because as I mentioned, I've been a petrol head all my life, and something that I've always done is trading vehicles really, really on a very frequent basis. Let's put it that way. So I was 23 years old before I moved to Asia and whatnot, and I had traded likely more than 8-10 cars, right? And I had also motorcycles, and that's not because my parents were very rich, was just because I just enjoyed the process of trading. And a bit of disclosure on when I was 12, we were talking about the entrepreneurship and whatnot. I actually got the passion for internet because I was trading mobile phones online in the time of the Nokias, right? The 9210s and the communicators and whatnot. And I just had that real passion of trade, right? And the power of the internet to it, which is, I don't know you from anywhere, and all of a sudden I'm selling something to you half an hour later, right? And so the transition to this business model where we're basically just enhancing what we did before, we connected people online, but we weren't really getting to the point that is really the pain, right? The pain is guaranteeing that the product that you're getting to the consumers between them is reliable and trustworthy, right? And in the secondhand space, right? And giving that peace of mind and trust. So we just kind of enhance from, okay, I connect the buyer and seller to, okay, I connect the buyer and seller, but I guarantee you that this product has accountability, right? For what it is, based on our inspection to it, and based on we're here if you have problems afterwards to the buyer side, right? So it was very natural. And at the time that happened was fun because that year alone, I traded quite a bit of cars and bike myself. So I was up to the speed with it. It was just, acknowledging that we have an incredible team. It's been, many of them have been with us for the longest time, super bright backgrounds as well. And then we have an incredible set of investors as well. So in the market of motorbikes, it's humongous, regardless of the model that we're applying. We just need to make it really work. And when something, it's about serving the others and adding value even extra, like I just said, we enhanced what we were doing, the results show up, and that's what happened. And it was just very smooth transition, to be honest. I think what held us back during the longest time for us to make this transition was the fact that we firmly believe, first, I love the idea of the 99% profit margin on a click, right? That's classified. Which is almost invincible, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the trading business is a lot more operational complexity to it. And then I thought was a bit of a more sophisticated model, which obviously it's old internet. It is not. And then, as we moved to this model, it was just proven that we were serving a lot better the community. We were adding a lot more value. to the bike space vertical and uses of it. So it was hard and fulfilling, and obviously business-wise very interesting.
Okay. Okay. But I do have to imagine that when you move more towards the transactional side, there's a lot more hands-on involvement in every single transaction that's taking place. So from a headcount standpoint, is it safe to say that you had to go on a hiring spree in order to manage the new requirements of the business?
You know, I can tell you that after a few years in the startup world with this setup team that we have today, it always goes back to them, right? It's just, you know, there's a lot of resourcefulness. Some people can do a lot with nothing, and I think that, you know, heads to the team, heads off, because when we started, and there's a lot of interesting stories there was still a lot of lockdowns. Vietnam was locked down for the next 5 months. You couldn't go on the road.
Yeah, quite strict there.
And Malaysia was still on-off kind of lockdowns, and you couldn't really go full on the road unless. So when we started, we had a letter that we would give to our customers to come to visit our team's condos where we parked motorcycles that we bought and sold. We were inspecting on the spot. In the condos itself, like not in the office, not inspection centers, not nothing. And that, you know, that was quite interesting to be honest. There was a lot of customers that were afraid of going on the road at that time, afraid of getting caught. And we had that letter because we were a tech company, right? So we were able to utilize it. That was fun.
Okay. Okay. How do you guys manage the inspection? Because you start getting into a team aspect. Are you outsourcing it? Do you have your own inspectors? If you have your own inspectors, or even if you don't, how do you maintain like the SOPs of ensuring the quality of inspection? And because you're ultimately going to take an inventory risk on those transactions as well. So that seems like a pretty critical component, yeah?
Yeah, so at the beginning, what was really basically everybody that carries more knowledge on the motorcycles during the inspections, and that was whoever in the team had knowledge in bikes, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously that was the very beginning of it when we pivot and we were still doing in our own condos the business, right? But we evolved to have professional mechanics that actually know their stuff, have been doing it for the longest time, and have years of fixing bikes and whatnot, and detecting all the problems in the testing and visual mode. So right now we are fully equipped with our own mechanics. Yes.
Okay. And when you talk about doing the inspections and all of that, it's site specific. Yeah, somebody has to come to where you're at in order to get it inspected. So you have a little, you don't have the logistics headaches. But when if that is the case, how do you choose the locations? Do you have some sort of analysis to get proper level of density or high traffic areas? What's some of the logic on that component?
Yeah, so now we are expanding our inspections as multi-location, and basically we're going to be a lot more closer to our consumers, and that comes on database, right? So we have quite a bit of transactions already done throughout this past time since we pivoted, and we obviously understand where the customers are based and where the leads come from beyond customers, right? All the leads are traceable somehow. And get us to a data geolocation point where we can tag to a volume percentual of the total volume of leads that tells us this would be the best location.
Okay. So tell me a little bit on walk me through a little bit on like the typical flow. So I'm a motorbike owner. I end up wanting to sell. So I pop into one of your locations. You guys inspect it. Everything looks good. What can I expect as somebody that's ready to sell my bike?
So it's super simple for Malaysia. You would literally get your inspection done whilst you're sitting having a talk with a buyer of ours, right? Whilst our mechanic is actually doing the inspection process. The inspection process at maximum 20 to 25 minutes. There's a end result that tells us everything that the bike has and all the details that we are looking at to help us price the bike as well. That's when we give you a full price on a contract that is basically a selling agreement from you as a seller to us. And then if you're agreeable to it, you sign, we'll wire the money to you within 5 to 10 minutes. There's sometimes it drags a bit more depending on the finance team, how it is, but usually within an hour, you will have the money in your bank account. And then off you go. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Very simple process.
Is there any, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here just for the sake of it. How do you guys ensure the validity of the ownership on behalf of the person that rode the bike in the first place? Do you guys have some sort of linkages to the government database to kind of validate the title?
Yeah, correct. So actually, apologies, I missed that bit out, which is a crucial bit. So you sign the contract, and before you get the money wired to your bank account, there's actually a small machine that it's from, there are a few providers where you put your IC, you thumbprint, and basically the ownership of the motorbike has been changed from you to the company, and it obviously. This process only happens if you have your IC with you. It tallies with the documents of the motorcycle. So actually, it's a very, very controlled system. Brilliantly made by the government and systems in Malaysia, to be honest, where you don't see similar in some other surrounding countries, I may say.
Yeah, so it's a relatively smooth process in order to make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, super smooth actually.
Okay, so the actual payout can be quite quick because you can validate all of that. You've done the inspection on site, boom, money leaves the bank, right?
Yes.
From your standpoint, once you've bought it, you now own that bike. What do you do with it?
So we get this motorcycle basically to we already know the condition of the motorbike, and we know what needs to be done. So we get it literally flipped on the fly, right?
Yeah.
If the visual condition of the bike is great, which 99% of the time is, we just put the content live immediately, so that we win inventory days time, right?
Yeah.
And we put the bike to the workshop, and the queue list comes in. Usually, a mechanic flips a motorbike fairly simple and fast if parts available. Parts is always the key detrimental factor of speed on the workshop.
Yeah.
And then from there point on is basically ready to test ride, right? So there's the workshop, Q&A for test ride, passed down to showroom. People can visit and test the bikes.
Okay. And where do you showroom the bikes? Do you have physical locations? Do you utilize somebody else's?
We have physical locations. At the early stage was a lot different.
It's not your condo, yeah.
We've done
in the early days.
But we've done quite a bit of transitions. We've done the condo, obviously.
Yeah.
And then we've done other locations that was quite amazing. And then we moved on to have our own facility and showroom, and now aiming to have a more centralized one where we can offer a much better experience to our consumers, both Malaysia and Vietnam. Yeah.
Okay. Very, very cool. Very cool. So when you're on site and you're inspecting, does the person have some sort of like tablet or something to where they're entering in the information digitally, so it's kind of triggering the system right then and there, kind of the review standardized system, check mark box, A, B, C, something along those sort of lines straight into the system, or how is it?
In terms of inspection?
Yeah. Or just getting it into your guys' system from the day from that very starting point. Yeah,
so we basically look at bikes themselves in terms of full data approaches, like from a bike in to a bike out, and what that entails, which is the person that is selling the bike to us, and then the one that is buying from us, and then the whole entire process of the bike together with us, right? So what it went through and how we took care. Now, in terms of inspection or whatnot, we still have our mechanics with a paper, and that then goes to a digitalization system and then moves on. But obviously, As we move on to a new phase of the company now, about to close our Series A and whatnot, we're obviously looking at super enhancing our technology as well.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of manual work that we are to streamline to a more efficient and scalable way.
Okay. Okay. And do you guys have, or are you planning to build workflow tools to kind of connect those dots to where, you know, you digitize the paperwork on the repairs, it says we need this part, it triggers something in your guys' system to tell, hey, procurement department, go find this part?
Yeah. Yeah, naturally, the way to go is getting the automation of all, and you know, understanding as soon as the report is done and is a confirmed bike in that triggers the order of parts, and then obviously the forecast based on brand model and stock availability due to workload and all of this obviously will come to play. It's something that obviously is not yet at the most pinnacle of technology system yet, but we are actively looking forward for that day.
It's the resourcefulness, as you were saying. I mean, it's still a startup. It's still a startup. It's still got some room to grow in order to acquire all of those extra efficiencies. So from the standpoint of the buyer, then, I'm interested in getting a bike. I can go on your website. I can come by the showroom. Let's assume I saw something that I like. Now, how is the process to purchase just as quick as the process to sell?
Well, it really is down to your decision making, right? You can be the kind of person that takes a while to decide, and you might have lost the bike chance. But it can take you down to 10, 15 minutes, right? Because for us, it's, as soon as you see the bike and you say, I'll take it, it's a thumb print, 2 minutes, and money wired to us, right? But then it goes down to, do you need a loan to get approved? Like, right, all this process, because insurance process very easy, road tax process, all this we do for you in a fly, right? So it is, you know, is the process of the buyer itself, how they want to take the decision of moving ahead, right?
Yeah. Okay. And so you mentioned a couple of things that I want to ask about there, which is kind of the additional services on top of it. So if I need a loan, you guys have banking partners? Do you do it yourself? How are you guys able to help facilitate that component then and there?
Yeah, so basically we right now have partners that help us provide insurance to our consumers, obviously finance facilities, multi-partners that we have, multi-country. You know, sometimes one partner wouldn't accept your submission, but other would be happy to take it. Some are faster than others, which is something a little bit out of our control still. On a later stage, we hope to be able to provide an extended arm of our support in terms of doing things more in-house. But obviously, you know, one thing that we're starting to put quite a bit of effort in, we did some A/B testing, is the after sales, right? So guarantee that if you have any problem with your motorcycle, we actually do the maintenance for you. We A/B tested it, and that, you know, is an extremely bright experience for the consumer, and we like it as a business. And we see that there's a lot of future for us to grow that angle as well. And it just builds a 360 experience on the umbrella of our brand to the consumer. We're very peculiar and very obsessed about the experience we provide to the consumer. So having it all under you know, kind of our vertical angle brand control is something that we're definitely aiming for, as we are capable of per market and as a company.
Okay. What's the average life cycle of somebody's ownership of a pre-owned motorcycle? So if we looked at somebody that comes on to iMotorbike, they buy a motorcycle, what on average is the expectation of when they would be ready to come back, sell their bike, and try and get another one?
Yeah, so from all data we collected and external and internal details that we can access to, what we see, the turnaround is about 3 to 4 years at max of any lifetime of a bike with a user, right? From the new to first trade, second trade, third trade, right? And that's about it. And so what is fascinating about motorcycles compared to the business of cars is that motorcycles tendentially do a lot less kilometers. There are cars that are able to do 500,000 kilometers, 400, 500.
Sure.
Whereas motorbikes, you would do a 200,000 at max, potentially. I'm sure there are people that will argue with me that, but as an average, would be below 200,000 kilometers, which is a 2 flips of the odometer, or 1 flip. And then basically maintenance is a lot more regular, right? So you need to change oil anywhere between 3 to 6 months every time, tires every year. And there's a lot more regularity on getting your bike checked and maintained. So that's also a very interesting angle of bikes. Yeah.
And so you mentioned the after sale kind of service as well. Is that where you see the kind of the extra hook to maintain people in the ecosystem? Is that there's a big revenue opportunity if you've sold them, you can keep them in the ecosystem by offering those additional services?
Yeah, look, beyond keeping them in the ecosystem, I believe we want the kind of a standardization of the same purpose-driven mentality of our business on the maintenance side, right? Which is guaranteeing and ensuring that whenever you go to maintain your motorcycle, you know what to count with in terms of pricing, in terms of post-maintenance warranty, right? Of whatever was fixed, guaranteeing that you're in a place potentially with aircon while your bike is being serviced. We have some certain standards. So you recognize that wherever you go, that iMotorbike logo is there for the after sales. You recognize a certain standard of quality on a customer experience kind of perspective, right? And I go to change my brake pads. I know how much that costs and how long it takes, and I'm going to change my oil also the same, and so forth, right?
Yeah. I imagine there's a pretty decent segment of motorcycle owners that are a little bit more hands-on with some of the maintenance repairs, because like things like brake pads, oil changes, they're relatively simple, straightforward things. I mean, there's some things that are significantly less straightforward. I guess the more advanced your bike is also kind of dictates how easy some of those things are. Okay, very cool. Let me ask you. So you're in Vietnam and Malaysia. I have to imagine, just from like anecdotal experience, there's a lot more motorbikes on the street in Vietnam. Is that the dominant share of activity since it has such high volume of motorbikes?
Yeah, look, definitely the 70 million registered motorbikes in Vietnam are far greater than the 16 million registered motorbikes in Malaysia. For us as a business, as COVID was quite heavy in the beginning of our pivot in Vietnam, we ended up having a lot more focus in Malaysia and to getting the results from there. But naturally is a much larger market, same as Indonesia with 120 million registered motorbikes.
Yeah, 120 million actually sounds like a low number considering the population is so big. So let me ask you then, since we're talking about the amount in different countries, and you're still moving forward, you're still growing, you're still improving your efficiencies, all of these different things. What does the future look like for iMotorbike? And I guess to attach a fairly open-ended question to that, how do you define success when you're looking at what the future holds for you?
Yeah, look, I believe the definition of success for me is really tied to the everyday customer reviews that we get, and I'm extremely focused in that. I can tell you that anything below a 5-star, I'm digging deeper to understand what happened, and ensuring that we can support and brighten the experience of the consumer somehow. Because I believe the success comes down to having first an incredibly motivated team, then down to that relating to the consumer experience, those reviews that we get, and then obviously guarantee that all shareholders are extremely happy with the business. I think that's what tells success, regardless of the size that you are at, right? And then you scale it as market in team, and all of that comes together as capable of. Now, in terms of future, and sorry to have reversed your question, but in terms of future, vision for us, I believe we can clearly become the dominant player. So far, we have no competition in terms of motorbikes and in the business model that we're doing in Southeast Asia. But well, there's obviously a lot of retailers on the bike space and whatnot, but not exactly doing what we do. I envision that we are capable of getting to an extremely sizable business and throughout multi-markets in Southeast Asia, serving at best the experience, and really making a bright experience for every consumer on something that has been a very important purchase for many households, and providing quite difficult times as well when they buy the wrong thing the wrong way, and takes up so much money from their household capability, because on average about 7 salaries of average person in Southeast Asia is what it costs for the purchase of a motorcycle, right? So that's quite of an impactful mat, and we want to guarantee that brings bright results and good experiences. So that in scale, multi-market, in a very large size, in a 360 vertical controlled experience. That's, I believe, what we're looking at in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, very, very cool. I think it's an ambitious plan, but very, very likely that you guys will end up getting there. It seems that you've come a long way since the pivot, and the market is, as you said, it's quite open for you to attack it. So Gil, let me wrap up with my standard closing questions that I ask everyone. The first one is, what is a tech tool in your life or business that you just cannot live without?
I would say the most basic possible one, right, is really my calendar, because without it, I wouldn't be able to cope with all the remembering of all the affairs that I need to do. So it's an incredible help that I have.
Yeah, I think considering the amount of time demands on a founder, without a proper calendar in place, it can quickly devolve into chaos. Last question here. If you were to talk to another startup founder that's just getting going, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you could offer?
I would say it's everything that I would say is cliche. There's so many people getting their opinions out about what the others should do, but I think the best advice I could give is be patient, right? And understand that everything takes a lot more time potentially than what it seems to at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's quite wise. I think everyone is in such a hurry to move fast and break things, as the cliche saying goes. But there's value in having patience, allowing something to show whether or not it's showing growth or not, and then acting accordingly. Sometimes you have to take a business pivot, as you guys have done, but patience in that process, I think, is probably what you're alluding to.
Yep.
Very cool. Gil, this has been a fantastic conversation. I learned a ton about buying and selling of motorbikes and how you guys have evolved to where you are at today. Really thank you for coming out and sharing with us.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye. All right, that wraps it up for another fantastic episode of the Sea of Startups. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, go onto iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It's the best way for us to get discovered and to have these startup stories reach a broader audience. If you have any suggestions or would like to get in touch, you can email me at kevin@indelible.vc. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Brocklin from Indelible Ventures, and this is the Sea of Startups.